Okay, we've covered your sleep setup, everything you're wearing, and how you're carrying it. But it's time to get into the fuel that's going to keep you moving on trail. Cooking systems, water purification, and carrying capacity are areas where it's very easy to overpack, but you also really don't want to run out of food, water, or gas. This video will explain what I'd recommend you take and a rough guide on how to calculate your water needs. Now, I'm going to recommend canister stoves for the Larapinta. Fires and even twig stoves are banned here. Liquid fuel is overkill for the weight, and alcohol stoves are just too finicky. Canisters strike the best balance. They're light, powerful, and easy to set up. And while simmer control can be difficult, most people will just be using these stoves to boil water or reheat meals, both of which are perfectly doable. My budget recommendation for this is the Soto Amicus, from $80 AUD and 75 grams. If you're happy to spend a bit more for simmer control and better performance in the wind, then the Soto Wind Master here is your best bet, coming in at 125 AUD and slightly heavier at 86 grams. Or, if outright speed and lightweight are your priority, check out the MSR Pocket Rocket 2 for 120 AUD and just 73 grams. Jet boils are another option which tends to get a bad rap among people chasing lighter packs, as they're heavier, more expensive, and offer less simmer control. But if your main aim is boiling water, they're super efficient with fuel and just fast in general, and you can choose what size pot you want with it. They start from around 230 AUD and go up to around 330 AUD, weighing between 325 and 450 grams. But remember, this includes a pot. Any of these options will cook your food in a relatively efficient way, so choose whichever fits your needs and your budget. When choosing a pot, the main questions are size and material. I've done a video looking into the difference between aluminium and titanium, but the short version is that titanium is lighter but more prone to hot spots, while aluminium is heavier but better for actual cooking. In terms of size, what you're doing with the pot is your main consideration. 550ml is enough for one person if you're mostly just boiling water, while a 750ml pot will be better for cooking for one or boiling for two. If you'll be cooking for 2 or more people, it's worth looking for a 900ml to 1.3 litre pot. If cooking for more than that, it may be worth thinking about taking a second stove, as things will start to take a long time. We stock a wide range of pots, including Soto and Toke's titanium pots, which I've done a video comparing as well. And we also stock Cedar Summit and MSR. Another thing to consider is that the shape of the pot also impacts the size of the gas canister that you can nest in there. When it comes to gas canisters, between two, we took two 230 gram canisters, starting with one and picking the other up at the halfway mark of the trip, which was enough to boil water for breakfast and coffee, a tea at lunch, and dinner and a hot chocolate at night for 2 weeks. We would use the stove at around 85% power, as this is generally more efficient than using it at full, and we make sure it wasn't on for any longer than required to save fuel. If you need more than this, it could be worth packing in another canister, or if you're solo, 2 of the 100 gram canisters could be enough for the whole trip. We actually found plenty of gas left in the cupboards throughout the trail, so it's worth keeping this in mind, but don't rely on it. And if you do use one of these, make sure that you pack it and the one that you took in out to avoid leaving gas canisters as rubbish on trail. An important note here is that you can't fly with gas canisters, so leave them at home and pick them up from an outdoor store in Alice Springs. We're almost through the full gear list. Subscribe so that you don't miss the final breakdown of safety and navigation. Water is a big consideration on a trail like this, as often the only place to fill up is at the tanks at the beginning and the end of each section. There is always the option of doing each section in a day, so that you have plenty of water for both breakfast and dinner with the tanks. But some of the sections are long, and more importantly, some of the most beautiful campsites are actually up on the ridge lines between these sections. On sections like this, you'll need to carry lots of water, especially if you get some hot days, which is fairly common even in midwinter. While you can definitely save weight by rationing water supplies, you'll want to be quite confident and experienced doing this, as you can get yourself in real trouble if you get this wrong. Some days you may need to take between 5 and 8 litres of water with you, so you'll want to be prepared to carry this amount and have capacity to. I'd recommend at least 3 to 4 litres capacity in water bottles, like I have here, and something like a 2 to 3 litre Knock Vecto water bladder, as well as a super lightweight bladder that you can use when required. We actually packed in a goon sack of wine in our first food drop, and then had the ability to fit another 1.5 litres of water in this although it was much more prone to leaks than the other options, so we made sure to drink this first. When it comes to water bottles, we have a huge selection, and I've done a video on most of these options. But there's a wide range from ultralight to ultra convenient to slightly heavier but more robust, and also hot water compatible. When calculating how much water you'll need, there is no foolproof way of doing this, as the temperature, how hydrated you are at the beginning, how quickly you walk, and what time you set off during the day all impact this. However, I will explain how I personally judge it. In hot weather, I'll try to take 1 litre of water per hour of walking, which is usually between about 3.5 to 5 kilometres. I can usually judge this approximately by how technical the terrain is supposed to be. In cooler weather, I'll lower this to around 500 ml per hour. On some of the longer sections of around 30 kilometres, this means that in super hot weather, I'd need to take between 6 and 8 litres just for drinking water whilst walking. I'd also need to factor in dinner and breakfast, where I'll need about 1 litre for each of those. Food plus a hot drink and some extra for drinking overnight, washing up and brushing your teeth. In theory, that's going to sound more like 10 litres than 8, but at some point it becomes hard to carry that much water, so there are ways around this, but be careful. At the tank at the beginning of each section, I try to overhydrate and get about 1 litre drunk before setting off. This can take a bit out of what you need to carry for the first hour. In the final hour before you arrive at a tank as well, I'll often assume that I'm going to be a bit low on water, but be able to get through knowing that I'm close to the tank. The other and main consideration here is that this is for walking when it's really hot. When the weather is super hot on trail, we actually spend a lot of the hottest part of the day in the shade of the shelters, drinking plenty from the tanks. We'd only actually head off walking around 4 to 5 p.m. as it cooled to get to camp around or just after sunset. This means that for the last hour or two, your needs are much lower as the temperature is lower, and you'll need closer to 500 ml per hour. We'd also leave between 4:30 and 5 a.m. to miss the heat, again, meaning that the first 2 to 3 hours actually require much less water than I mentioned. This is where I get the 8 litre maximum capacity number from, although it's worth working this out based on your speed and going in with the knowledge that this assumes that you take advantage of hydrating well when at the tanks, and also avoiding the hottest part of the day. In terms of water purification, I've also done a full video on this, but in short, a filter is my recommendation, as the best way to decrease your exposure to getting sick, and taking purification tablets as a backup is a great idea in case anything happens to your filter, or if you just want to decrease your risk even further when you're filling up in any sketchy water sources. Now, I would personally recommend the soya squeeze, as it is by far the longest lasting of the filter options, and it's also the most effective at reducing the contaminants that may get you sick. But we also sell a bunch of different brands too, which will also provide more than adequate protection, especially when filling up from the tanks on trail. There are plenty of options when it comes to water purification tablets, but we sell the Cutlery Micro Pure tablets, which work really well. Most places you will buy these tablets from will have a cheap and an expensive option, and I'll warn you now that while they will probably work very similarly in terms of water purification, you're likely paying for taste. If you go the cheap route here, make sure you have some electrolyte tablets or something to make the water taste a little better. And the hotter it gets, the harder it is to get foul-tasting warm water down. Let that be your warning. A few other bits that I haven't mentioned that you'll definitely need at camp is something to eat with. I'd recommend a spork, and we have options from Cedar Summit as well as Tokes, which both work really well. Well, you can definitely get away with a cloth from home or cutting up a sponge into a small little square. We also sell these pot scrubbers from Cedar Summit, which fit perfectly around the wilderness wash, which is a must-have if you ask me. We also sell a huge range of food options, as you can see on the table here. I haven't gone into this because it'd be way too long for this video, but if you do want me to do a deep dive into the different types and flavors and what I recommend, then let me know in the comments below and I'll make sure to get onto a food video. The Larapinta is a well signposted and relatively clear track for the most part, but along the creek beds and some of the rock scrambling, it would be easy to miss a turn. In the next video, we're covering navigation and the essential safety gear you can't leave home without.